Hello and welcome to the Deck Tech. I'm Ian Duke. With me is constructed expert and deck builder extraordinaire Sam Black.
Hi.
Welcome. You've brought with you a pretty unique deck today, so why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about the overview, how it works, and why you brought it today.
Sure. I'm playing Blue-Black Madness. I have basically 12 Madness enablers, Cryptbreaker, Wharf Infiltrator, and Jace Friend's Prodigy. And my goal is to cast one of those on turn 1 or 2, and then untap with it and start generating value by discarding Madness spells. So I have the 12 enablers and then 12 payoffs, so even split there. I have Just the Wind, Guess's Bidding, and Voldaren Pariah. And then obviously Wharf Infiltrator lets me discard anything for value and kind of is its own engine.
So we're going to get into all the individual cards in just a moment, but my understanding is that you brought this deck with a very specific metagame in mind. Tell us about that.
So basically the deck was built to beat the Star City metagame, which is to say mostly Bant Company with a possible shift to green-white tokens. We thought those decks were good. We couldn't find, we tried to build various Delirium decks, but we were building them as aggro decks or mid-range decks or control decks. And I think the secret for this Pro Tour was to build them as a combo decks, which we didn't really get to. And so among the decks that we found, we were like, oh, just Bant Company really is that good. Well, I found a deck that can beat it handily. Like, as good, my matchup is about as good as exists in Constructed. I think I win north of 75% of the time. But against these, like, the field that exists is all Delirium decks, some of them, like, dedicated, like, self-mill Kozilek's Return, Emerge, go huge. Everyone's going over the top of everyone else, and I'm at the bottom.
So it didn't quite work out the way you expected, but for those of you out at home, if you're looking for something to beat your local metagame, if you are facing a lot of Bant Company and green-white tokens, this deck could be for you. So let's jump in and take a look through the slides and take a look at the card by card here. So yeah, you talked about Madness outlets. Walk us through these here and the synergies involved.
This is a mix here with, okay, so I guess we're looking at token creators, some of my token creators. What we do have laid out here is my nut draw. If you can go turn 1, Cryptbreaker, turn 2, Wharf Infiltrator, attack, Madness Guess's Bidding. Now you have 3 zombies in play and you can draw another card. So you've drawn 2 cards, one from your Cryptbreaker and one from your Wharf Infiltrator, and put 4 creatures into play, and it's the 3rd turn. So that's pretty great. So that's what's going on with these. That's the kind of start you're looking for.
We'll take a look at the next slide here.
Yeah. These are my Planeswalkers. Jace filling a similar role to the other things, just letting you get going. One of the big strengths of this deck is that because your key cards cost 1 and 2 mana, you just get them out there and get to start doing your thing right away. And because they are cards that just trade one resource for another, you can loot or you can discard to make zombies. You don't really get flooded, you don't really miss land drops, you just have all this natural draw smoothing built into your engine. And then Liliana is a card that has less synergy with the deck than the other things. It was kind of a late add, but basically found that it's so important to have one of your Madness outlets in play that we need Liliana so that if they kill it, you can get it back, present it again. And also, part of the draw to the deck is it gets a lot of free wins. It's, assuming they don't kill your Madness enablers, its nut draws are just so good where you do that thing that I was talking about with the first slide, or Liliana is another way to just get free wins. There are certain decks that just fold to Liliana, like for example our deck. And so just having that, the idea was that it would give us some more of that. And then also, there are certain matchups where you kind of become a Planeswalker control deck. And the ultimate is very synergistic with our deck, as we're likely to have a lot of zombies in play anyway. And once you start making zombies with Cryptbreaker into play and Dark Salvations in your deck,
that's really interesting to me. How relevant is it? How often in testing were you getting to the ultimate, and did it matter that you also had other zombies in your deck?
The answer is that against something like Bant Company, where Voldaren Pariah is like the big show and that'll win the game, it doesn't come up because you win before then.
Okay.
And against the decks with a lot of removal, it doesn't come up because they kill your Liliana. But against green-white tokens specifically, a huge portion of games came down to Liliana's
Wow,
ultimate.
that's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Not usually that we see a Planeswalker ultimate carrying so much of the power in high-level constructed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So let's take a look at the next slide. Some utility spells here. Walk us through
This
these
is
inclusions.
the removal.
Yeah.
Grasp of Darkness is just a card that we expect to be very good in the format. It, kills a vast majority of the creatures. It is instant. It basically, we thought that the removal would need to be chosen based on beating Selfless Spirit and Spell Queller.
Okay.
And this ignores Indestructible and doesn't have the mono color requirement and lets you get your other spells out from under a Spell Queller. Grasp of Darkness just seemed like the premier removal spell in the format.
Makes a lot of
to us.
sense. Were you also thinking about Archangel Avacyn with Grasp of Darkness?
Certainly.
Yeah.
It just matches up well against almost every creature. Not Ishkana, not Emrakul, but the ones we were expecting to see.
Sure. So the full 4 copies there.
Yeah,
How
and
about
then
just the wind?
Just the Wind is an incredible tempo play against the creature decks because it just costs nothing, basically. I mean, Vapor Snag was like Unsummon, except they take 1 damage, and that was like, whoa, this is apparently great. This is like Unsummon, except you draw a card.
Right, and by that you mean if you have a bunch of looters and
Yeah.
other ways to get value out of discarding cards.
Yep.
So casting this for Madness after you've just looted is like an Unsummon withdrawal
Exactly.
card. So very
and then
cool.
Dark Salvation, everything that costs almost nothing, which means that it's all pretty low power level. Dark Salvation is our high impact play.
Okay.
We build up some zombies. This gives us a big removal spell that puts 2 or 3 zombies into play, which lets us start using Crypt Breaker, and then we just kind of Crypt Breaker finds more Dark Salvations, we flip Jace, we can cast Dark Salvation again. Dark Salvation is the end game.
That sounds awesome to me. Yeah, this card, I've seen a little bit of this card played. It's been very impressive when I've seen it. Cool. Let's check out the next slide. So Voldaren Pariah is a card you've mentioned a couple times so far.
Yeah.
Tell us about why this is so awesome and how important it is to the deck.
Well, so this is the other end game, and basically we can reliably discard it. We have 20 black sources, so it's pretty easy to cast it on turn 3. With all the zombie tokens and Eldrazi tokens, it's pretty easy to have 3 creatures lying around, and against a deck like Company or any deck that has important creatures, this just beats them by itself. Also, very, very, very important against Spell Queller. It costs 5 mana, even though we usually spend 3 mana.
Okay.
And it flies, and it's just bigger than Spell Queller. So it's really just like a nightmare in every direction for a deck like Bant.
And is this usually a card you're madnessing, or are you sometimes hard casting as well?
You're usually madnessing it, especially because against the decks that kill your madness outlets reliably, you side it out.
Okay.
So when it's in your deck, it's because you're going to be discarding, and then this is going to be a great payoff.
Yeah, so one of the key cards that's preying on those green-white decks that are low on removal.
Absolutely.
Very, very cool. Let's check out the next. So just getting into the mana base here, this is pretty self-explanatory. Just in general, how is the mana for this deck? Is it pretty smooth?
The mana's great. Obviously, because we're playing a card that we're trying to cast for triple black on turn 3, we have to play a huge number of swamps, and then that pushes us to play a couple of submerged boneyards, which isn't great. But in general, the 2-color mana in this format, when you're playing 25 lands, is good enough that you can pretty often have untapped mana on turns 1, 2, and 3, which is what you're really trying to do for your nut draws. And pretty happy with the deck's ability to do that.
Very cool. So there you have it. Not exactly the metagame you expected, but if you folks at home are seeing a lot of Bant Company or green-white tokens in your area, if you like zombies, if you like madness, this deck is super cool. Give it a try. I'm Ian Duke. With me is Sam Black, signing off from Deck Tech. Thank you.